Coming up on KGN Caribbean News, protests in Guyana sparked a national curfew as calls for justice grow louder. Denied at Carnival, a Jamaican woman shares her story after being refused service despite wearing her wristband. And Ding Dong takes dancehall global with the release of his latest album. That and more straight ahead on KGN Caribbean News. Welcome to KGN Caribbean News. I'm Carisha Graham. Our top stories this week. After months of calm, St. Kitts and Nevis is now reporting its first homicide of the year, marking a tragic end to what had been a record stretch without violence. A woman was found stabbed to death in her New Road home earlier this month, and police have since arrested and charged a 69-year-old man in connection with her killing. Officials say they remain focused on keeping crime rates low through stronger policing and community partnerships. While the streak has ended, the hope is that the progress made in recent months signals a long-term shift in public safety. Authorities in St. Kitts have also arrested a man in connection with a major gun and drug bust. Throne Fleming of Old Road is now facing multiple charges after police say they found a 9mm pistol, over a dozen rounds of ammunition, and a stash of cannabis during a search at his home late last week. The operation was carried out by a joint team of local police, defense forces, and custom officers with canine support. Meanwhile, in New York City, members of the Caribbean community came together for a candlelight vigil, filling the streets with prayer, music, and calls for justice. From Brooklyn to Queens, the message was clear. Adriana's life mattered, and the fight for answers isn't over. An initial autopsy overseen by a team that included a specialist requested by her family ruled the cause of death as drowning, but that finding has done little to quiet public suspicion. The case triggered a wave of protests across Guyana, some turning violent. The government responded with a temporary curfew to calm tensions after reports of clashes and looting. TikTok live turned deadly in St. Andrew, Jamaica after a popular social media personality was gunned down while streaming to his followers. The man, known online as Baba Skeng, was standing outside a shop in Red Hills when a gunman walked up and opened fire, shooting him multiple times. The attack was caught on live video, sending shock and outrage through the online community. This marks at least the fourth time a Jamaican TikTok creator has been killed during a live stream in recent months, raising serious concerns about safety and public violence. Police are still investigating, but so far, no arrests have been announced. Royal Caribbean cruises are a popular way to visit the Caribbean, but a recent trip made news for a violent fight on board. The trouble started in an elevator on Liberty of the Seas. A couple asked a group of young men to stop jumping in the elevator. When they tried to get off on the 8th floor, the man was attacked and knocked unconscious. When the ship returned to Florida, an 18-year-old from North Carolina was arrested and charged for the assault. The cruise wasn't in the Caribbean at the time, but with so many ships heading to our region, it's a reminder that safety at sea is just as important as safety on land. The United States Coast Guard has pulled in a massive haul of illegal drugs, over 3,700 pounds of cocaine and marijuana seized during two operations in the Caribbean Sea. The offload happened on April 30th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where the narcotics was brought ashore at Port Everglades. Officials say the estimated street value tops $12 million. The busts were carried out by crews abroad the USS Minneapolis St. Paul, working alongside Coast Guard law enforcement and Navy air support. A major shift in Jamaica's justice system, a new law now requires anyone convicted of capital murder to serve at least 50 years in prison. It's one of the harshest sentences in the region, and it's already sparking debate. The law was recently passed with the goal of curbing violent crime, but while some say it's a step in the right direction, others aren't convinced it'll change much on the ground. We spoke to a few people to hear their first reaction to the 50-year minimum and whether they think harsher sentences really work.
Yes, I do believe that the murder rate could decline. People will take into consideration the impact this crime will not only have on their lives, but the lives of their loved ones.
I feel like it has to be done in order to try to make the necessary change to reduce the rate.
While some residents voices their concerns, the government, meanwhile, says new measure is just one piece of a broader strategy to restore law and order. Antigua and Barbuda just wrapped up a nationwide gun amnesty campaign aimed at cutting down illegal firearms on the streets. For nearly a month, residents were encouraged to turn in weapons. In total, police collected 7 guns, including shotguns, handguns, and even air rifles, along with several rounds of ammunition. Authorities say the program was a step towards safer communities, and while the numbers may seem small, each surrendered weapon is one less threat to the public. A dress code reminder from Jamaica's parliament has set off a wave of conversation after staff were cautioned to maintain a professional appearance while on the job. In an internal memo signed by clerk to the houses, parliamentary staff were reminded to follow the public sector dress code, which requires workers to dress and present themselves professionally at all times. While the memo never mentions hickeys directly, the notice followed reports that an employee showed up to work with a visible mark on her neck, raising questions about what counts as professional in a government setting. The decades-long border dispute between Guyana and Venezuela is once again in the spotlight. Controversy centers on the Essequibo region, an area rich in natural resources that both countries claim as their own. Guyana currently administers the territory, but Venezuela has announced plans to hold elections for officials in the area. Despite international court proceedings still underway, a global legal body recently issued an order to pause those elections, warning that it could increase tensions before a final ruling is made. Oil production off the Essequibo coast has made the region even more valuable as drilling expands. The dispute has grown more intense. Debate is heating up in Barbados Senate as lawmakers deliberate a bill that could change how the country's seaports are run. The seaport industry bill promises to boost trade and modernize port operations and support a blue economy that balances business with sustainability. But the proposal is facing pushback over security and control.
Does the Barbados blue economy, and bringing it right back home to an incident that happened recently, ensure that all persons who are engaged in fishing have access to vessel insurance?
Senator Driggs isn't alone in her concern. The idea of bringing in foreign officers to work in Barbados seaports has sparked questions like why local officials aren't being prioritized for those roles and why Barbados isn't sending its own officers abroad instead. One senator says the measure follows international norms, comparing it to pre-clearance programs where United States Customs officers work in other countries. But for some, the bigger issue is about sovereignty. and whether opening the door to foreign authorities could mean losing control at home. The bill has already passed the House and remains under review in the Senate. Kamla Persad-Bissessar is officially back in office in Trinidad and Tobago, sworn in last weekend as the country's new prime minister, making history once again as the first woman to serve two non-consecutive terms. Excuse me. Her return follows a snap election that saw her party, the United National Congress, clinch a majority and unseat the ruling PNM. The victory comes just weeks after public pushback against the brief appointment of Stuart Young, who stepped in after Keith Raleigh's resignation. With her hand back on the wheel, Persad-Bissessar is promising change from cracking down on violent crime to stabilizing the economy and reviving key industries. But the road ahead is steep, and all eyes are on how her leadership will reshape the direction of the Twin Island Republic. Carnival is meant to be a joyful experience, but one woman says that wasn't the case for her. In an exclusive interview, she shared how a moment at the drink struck left her feeling humiliated and why she believes it should have never happened.
And so I shed real tears. I felt like I was being discriminated against.
It's one of the most anticipated celebrations in the Caribbean, a space for joy, self expression, and unity. But for one Jamaican woman, Carnival turned into a moment of public exclusion. Sophie O'Brien came to Carnival ready, hydrated, and sun protected. She bought her Gen X t shirt band package and wore her wristband. But when she asked for a drink at the drink struck, the response stunned her.
I was like, see, I'm wearing the band. And she was like, oh, an armband means nothing. And I was like, what? So I said to her, well, are you prepared to give me a refund? Then she get a lawyer.
After sharing her story, Brian realized she wasn't alone. She learned other women were treated the same way and they all had one thing in common.
All the people that complained in my comments or DM'd me, if you lined us up all together, we could be sisters.
Brian said in response, Gen X responded by offering her a free costume for next year, as if that would erase the insult.
So in the middle of my trauma, they're trying to position their brand or help me to position their brand.
What started as a party turned into a moment she says exposed how easily Black women's dignity is denied, even in the spaces meant to uplift them.
I know what I felt and I know what I saw. And so I shed real tears. I felt like I was being discriminated against.
The moment may have passed, but the impact remains as conversations around exclusion and accountability continue. Sophia Bryan says she's choosing to speak up.
I'm not going to tolerate that type of treatment. And if people are uncomfortable with me expressing disagreement with that kind of treatment, well, that's too bad.
In a season meant for celebration and enjoyment, Sophia Bryan's experience is now part of a louder call for change. A reminder that even in moments of joy, respect should never be optional. Moving forward, the call is clear. Carnival must become a space where dignity is honored and no one is made to feel less than. The Bahamas is making its tourism campaign global, signing a new partnership with Emirates Airline to attract travelers from across the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. The deal was sealed last week at the Arabian Travel Market in Dubai, where officials from the Bahamas Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Emirates signed a memorandum of understanding. Under the agreement, Emirates will launch joint marketing efforts to promote the island nation as a premier travel destination. The partnership includes promotional campaigns, travel packages, and familiarization tours for media and travel agents. While Emirates doesn't fly directly to Nassau, travelers can connect through existing partnerships with airlines like United and Air Canada. via hubs in Houston, Toronto, and other major cities. This move is part of a broader strategy to expand the Bahamas' reach into new markets and tap into Emirates' global customer base. Dancehall star Alkaline got an international recognition, this time from lawmakers in the United States. The artist was honored by the Massachusetts State Senate for his powerful influence on Jamaican music and culture. The citation was handed over during his recent concert in Boston, applauding his role in the sound of dancehall and pushing to global heights. Dancehall entertainer Ding Dong has officially dropped his debut album From Ding Dong to World Ding. The 13-track project showcases his growth from a dancer to a full-fledged recording artist, blending high-energy beats with signature dance anthems. The album features collaborations with rising stars and reimagines classic sounds, all while staying true to Ding Dong's infectious style. Released on May 2nd, the album marks a major milestone as he takes his music from the streets of Jamaica to the global stage. Reggae Sumfest is turning up the energy this July in Montego Bay with a high-powered lineup. Among the headlines announced Tyrus Riley, Massacre, and Vibes Cartel, three artists who have each left their mark on Jamaican music. Fans can expect a mix of conscious reggae, lyrical fire, and classic dancer energy as the festival takes over Catherine Hall for its main concert night. With more artists expected to be announced soon, the buzz around this year's lineup is only getting louder. Bounty Killer is getting ready to light up the stage in Brooklyn this summer. Yes, I said it, this summer, marking his first official United States performance in over a decade. So for my old heads, this one is for you. The dancehall icon is set to headline Reggae Fest at Barclays Center on July 5th, reuniting with longtime fans in a city that's always shown him love. With the return now confirmed, the concert is expected to draw a packed crowd for a night of energy, hits, and history in the making. Books, music, and stores take center stage in Treasure Beach this month for the return of the Calabash International Literary Festival. The 3-day celebration draws writers and readers from around the world for live readings, cultural exchange, and a deep dive into Jamaican storytelling traditions. And that's it for this week, KGN Caribbean News. I'm Carisha Graham.